And joining us now for a look at this event and more in the studio, we have Director Cleveland Beckett, and we have Jordan Mercado, and from Hostos Community College BMI team, he's a coordinator, and Ron West. He's no stranger to the show. He's a conference producer. We welcome you guys to the show. Had a great event, huh?
Oh, yes, it was outstanding.
I know. I saw the president there,
yes.
Ruben Diaz Jr. with his sleeves rolled up and no tie.
Well, first, Bob, I want to thank you because it was exactly on February 6th that we appeared here on your show, where we were able to highlight this upcoming fundraiser. And as Director Dees indicated, the purpose was to raise scholarships for our young men. And we had a dynamic array of honorees, from Mayor David Dinkins to Lowell Hawthorne to Hazel Dukes to Ernest Logan. We ran the gambit, and the students enjoyed it immensely. And more importantly, they derived inspiration from the activity, which leads us to this dynamic event. On March 14th, Tuesday.
Oh, here we go. Let's keep it going.
On Tuesday, March 14th.
The follow-up, yes.
We will have our 9th annual CUNitY Educational Summit, where we will be featuring students from all of the BMI teams. So we will have representation from Bronx Community College, Hostos Community College, and Lehman. And this is an activity where high school students will be involved and invited in the catchment area, as well as students from both of the community colleges and Lehman College, because this is a pipeline event. As the fundraiser indicated, we want to provide educational opportunity. Well, this is an opportunity to provide additional access to college in terms of preparedness. And we'll have a dynamic speaker present by the name of Felipe Luciano.
Oh, yeah. From 1190 WLIB.
Yes.
Right.
Dr. Dees and you guys really put it together. Big shout out to Dr. Dees, who wasn't able to make it here on the set today.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. West, how did it look for you?
Listen, it always looks good. I'm always pleased to work with this team. And this is our, ninth year? Ninth year. And for the last 9 years, we really had some very, very interesting speakers and topics. But what makes this one, for me, more special, this is the first event that we've done post-election. So the climate, the focus is a little bit different now. And we have three workshops. And I have always worked with getting the speakers together and theming the workshops.
Yeah.
We're focused this year on thinking, critical thinking skills in various forms. One of the things that kind of plagues our students is that you get them focused on where they want to go, but it's the how and the who, and how am I going to think? So there's a very close paradigm. You know, when you look at your purpose, your priorities, your productivity, and your success. And for us, theming this out and getting them to think and within that framework, see, everything else will open up. So we have an interesting opportunity to really tap into whatever fears they may have, and to also focus in on what role do they actually want to play. And it's very personal. You know, as we move forward, what role do you want to play?
Yeah.
Passive, aggressive?
Yes.
You know, do you want to be proactive? Yes.
Someone once said, you know, whatever you want to do in life, get the knowledge of what to say, how to be, how to think in the area that you're in.
You know what too, Bob, what's interesting is that I found that with students, you know, when you have a syllabus, you want to lecture, but the real issue is asking questions, because the content of the answer is really the issue. I always like to hear what a student says and tell, not only in the classroom, but in these conferences, the lesson's going to be listening to your colleagues talk about how they feel. So I'm very energized because we're in a special place in time in terms of our history, and this should be a very, very interesting, qualitatively, this conference, very interesting.
Use those listening skills
more
often now, more than ever
absolutely.
before.
And one of the workshops is going to be student-led.
Yeah.
So that's even
that's
more
great.
important.
I love to find out what's on the minds of our youngsters.
Yeah.
Mr. Mercado, how do you work yourself into this?
So I'm actually one of the panelists, and I am actually going to bring in some of the students that are a part of BMI team. Yes, from Hostos, who have amazing stories. And they're both freshmen. They've had interesting experiences, to say the least, and they want to share that perspective so that they can aid in the pipeline for other students and show that education is always a possibility.
What stands out in your mind as far as the question? They're very inquisitive as far as some of the questions that they ask.
Well, the one thing that always stands in my mind is that some students equate proactivity with disrespect. They are afraid of the unknown. They're afraid to reach out, and that leads to a feeling of isolation. And it's actually been shown to be one of the key markers to predict a student's success, not only in the community college level, but the four-year level as well. And so
How should they go about overcoming that?
Well, first they have to find a community. And it's important that the community not only acts as a safety net, but a vein of resources for the student. And for example, that is what the BMI team hopes to establish and is currently establishing for our students.
Yeah. And of course, the Urban Male Leadership Program has a number of those things in it that can tackle some of these situations.
Most definitely. We have academic intervention and success workshops. We have a peer mentorship program so that our freshman students especially are guided by our upperclassmen in terms of their development, not only academically, but they become in terms of social development as well. To recognize college is an opportune moment to really think globally. And we want people to understand that we're concerned about your academic success and your progression, but that has a byproduct of how you engage within your community, what type of leadership roles you take on your campus. And so we have workshops throughout the year, really monthly, quite frankly.
I like what you guys are doing, for sure. You know, I'll back you guys 100%.
Yeah.
Talk about what were you going to say first?
You know, I think that when we look at our priorities as far as moving students ahead, I've been a career educator in CUNY for 13 years and in other private institutions, working with high school students, STEM students, through men out of prison, through graduate students. And the thread is always the same.
Yes.
You know, the relationship between your academic, personal, and career education is really strategic. And a lot of students don't see the connection. So as we move forward in all of our programming, we have to keep using that language of how it's important, how they're not separate. And I think that, you know, in this climate of fear and uncertainty on the students' part, we have to get them to stop being afraid of everything, afraid to register, afraid to go to class, afraid to be a part of something. So I think that as we move forward into this conference, and having Felipe there, you know, who is a cultural historian, we're going to really energize these students to really get them to think more about me and I. You know, it becomes a collective community, but what is your role going to be in your personal development and your community development? And they're not separate. There's a connection.
And Bob, interesting enough, that leads to the actual theme of the conference, which is self-empowerment through education.
Self-empowerment through education.
Achieving academic and career success.
I like
and
it.
so, as my colleague mentioned in terms of about being intentional and what have you, I have to be thankful especially for both venues such as the Open Line as well as the intentionality at Lehman College. You know, the Urban Male Leadership Program operates within the Division of Student Affairs. And so under Vice President Magdaleno and our President, Dr. Jose L. Cruz, it's how we're able to have these types of high level and impactful opportunities for our students on a daily basis.
I like it. I like what you guys are doing.
You know, and I'd like to just add to that, whoever is able to see this broadcast over the next couple of days, I mean, please, this is really very, very important. I mean, we're going to have an opportunity to meet some wonderful people, but it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to hear the new language that's taking place, because as we move forward, you know, as it says in Scripture, see what, you know, you give way to the new. So the climate is new, it requires a new language, and we're going to just at least introduce it. And as we move forward, yes, to be empowered, thinking of self, it's going to have to be very, very strategic in terms of how we think and what questions we ask and what knowledge we gain.
Let's put the brakes on for one second. Talk about that new language briefly. It's coming from students?
It's coming from every place. And I think that even in the classroom, you know, we're looking at history like we've never seen before. Textbooks are becoming almost obsolete because every day as you see this person change his mind, change his thinking, change the dynamics, the textbooks are just being pushed aside. So what's going to be the language of today moving forward? And how are we going to start critically thinking about, and understanding the connection between what was old and what was new. It's a challenge for the classroom, but we can't think in how we used to do it, because how we used to do it is not the way we're going to be doing it from now on.
And people realize that the biggest movers of people, the Department of Religion, the Department of Education, religion, and of course the media.
Right.
Which includes social media.
Social media.
And you see what's happening with that.
But interestingly enough, though,
and that's a whole topic that we can discuss.
It is, and one of the things that's a major component with the UMLP, as well as a number of our BMI partners, is the issue of media literacy.
Yeah.
And we deal with that especially in our LEH 100 courses, where we engage our freshmen. So I agree with Mr. West that the modalities are different, but we have to make sure that we guide our students along still with those basic principles so they can apply both nuances.
Right, and people are trying to take advantage of people in that area, not knowing what we know about the biggest movers of people.
There's been a new department created, the Department of Miseducation.
There you go. All right.
And that's the one we have to really pay attention to.
Listen up, here we go.
Here we go.
Let's come back on the set and do a whole show on that.
Yeah, hey, listen.
So that means we really look
misinformation, what else can you call it?
Confusion, disorientation, and ultimate catastrophe. You know, I mean, it definitely leads someplace, but it doesn't lead to a good place, you know.
But Bob, what it does lead to, though, is that it gives even more fortification why people should attend this 9th Annual CUNity Educational Summit on Tuesday, March 14th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Lovinger Theater on the campus of Lehman College.
There you go.
Yeah.
Put it all together.
Yeah. It doesn't
and people are smart, you know, people can decipher what's real and what's not, because there's a lot of mess out there. People should understand that somebody produced what you just read.
Right.
Somebody produced what you heard on the radio. Somebody's producing what you hear. Helen's back there producing what you see on TV. And then you can decipher for yourself whether or not this is believable and this lines up with, you know, your thinking.
Yeah, and I just want people to come. Don't be afraid. You don't need to have great clothes on. Just come out. There's going to be information. There's going to be a chance to meet some people that you don't meet. You may have a student that might be interested in coming to one of the colleges. Parents, just come. Young people, just come.
Go ahead.
Right, and I actually believe that one of the most important things, the most empowering things that students can take away from this summit is that there are choices. There are accessible choices, some of which they never even could have imagined because they don't know the language.
Right.
Mr. Mercado, thank you so much. Mr. West,
Absolutely.
Mr. Beckett,
Of course.
thank you guys so much. Give them a big round of applause, everybody. The Urban Male Leadership Program doing some wonderful things in our community. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Mickey D's. I'm talking about you guys.
Listen, you know,
All right, we got to take a quick break right here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Open next.